I don't know if you know this, but the first version of the movie Star Wars was written by environmentalists. The first version was not the same as the way the version that we've all seen ended up. Is there anybody in here who doesn't know how the movie Star Wars goes? Oh, that's pretty damn cool. There's actually one person here who doesn't know how Star Wars goes. No, that's great. That's a very good thing. I saw that movie, I saw that movie when I was like 16 or something, which is about the right time to see it. I saw it again recently, and God, it's terrible. But back then, I was like, oh my God, the acting is so good. And I mean, I really liked it a lot. I wasn't one of those people who saw it, you know, like 1,000 times or anything. I mean, for one thing, I wasn't that much of a nerd, and for the other, I was way too busy playing Dungeons and Dragons. But for those of you, for the one person here who doesn't know how the movie goes, the way Star Wars goes is at the end of the movie, the Empire has built this giant Death Star that is a machine that's capable of destroying entire planets, which is a wonderful metaphor for the whole dominant culture. And then the rebels find a way to blow up the Death Star by dropping a torpedo through a thermal exhaust port. And no, I'm really not a nerd. So Luke Skywalker uses the Force to get past all the TIE fighters, and then he drops the torpedo down the thermal exhaust port, and it blows up the whole Death Star. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. But the first version was not written by Lucas and company. The first version was, the first draft of it was actually written by environmentalists. And so it's slightly a different movie. Well, and for one thing, it's not called Star Wars because that's so violent. Instead, it was called Star Nonviolent Civil Disobedience. Instead of actually blowing up the Death Star, the rebels use other tactics to slow the intergalactic march of empire. For example, I actually have in my hands a very rare first draft here. Anyway, for example, they set up programs for people on planets about to be destroyed to produce luxury items like hemp hacky sacks and gourmet coffee for sale to inhabitants of the Death Star. Audience members also discover that there are plans afoot to encourage loads of troopers and other citizens of the Empire to take eco-tours of doomed planets. The purpose will be to show to one and all that these planets are economically important to the Empire and so should not be destroyed. In a surprise move that will get viewers to the edges of their seats, other groups of rebels file lawsuits against the Empire, attempting to show that the environmental impact statement that Darth Vader was required to file failed to adequately support his decision that blowing up the planet would cause no significant impact. Viewers will thrill to learn of plans to boycott items produced by corporations to have Darth Vader on the board of directors. And they'll leap to their feet in theaters worldwide when they see bags full of letters written directly to Mr. Vader himself, asking that he please not blow up any more planets. And scribbled in the margin is a note from one of the screenwriters that says, for accuracy's sake, when we show examples of these letters, it's imperative that all letters to Mr. Vader be respectful and courteous, and that they stress the need to find cooperative solutions to the differences between the rebels and the Empire. Under no circumstances should the letters be such that they would alienate or anger Mr. Vader. If the letters upset Mr. Vader, the rebels' letter campaign to the Grand Moff Tarkin will certainly fail as well. Other plans include sending petitions and filing lawsuits. Now, we all know that that would be sufficient not only to bring the Empire to its knees, but to make a damn fine and exciting movie. The thing is, there's more. Thousands of renegade rebels, unhappy with what they perceive as toadying on the part of the mainstream rebels, decide, in a scene guaranteed to bring tears to the eyes of even the most cold-hearted theatergoers, to stand on the planets about to be destroyed, link arms, and say, give peace a chance. They send DVDs of that to Darth Vader and his boss, the Grand Moff Tarkin, to whom they also send wave after wave of loving kindness. A few of the rebels sneak aboard the Death Star and they lock themselves down to various pieces of equipment. And then stirring debates are held on screen among those rebels as to whether they should voluntarily surrender on approach of the troopers or whether they should remain locked down to the end. And in a brilliant and brave touch of authenticity, the rebels are never able to come to consensus. Okay, once inside the Death Star, there's a splinter group breaks off from those about to lock themselves down. And they rush down these hallways, and they somehow avoid all the troopers, and they burn a couple of transporters, and they use chemicals to etch Galaxy Liberation Front on the walls of the Death Star. And then there's a group that breaks off from them, and they sneak through all the hallways, they get past the troopers, and they actually make it all the way to Darth Vader's headquarters. And Darth Vader's all by himself. And they sneak up behind him, and they hit him with a vegan cream pie. The producers decided to take that scene out because it was too close to another movie they were developing at the same time, which was called The Plot to Pie Hitler. Thank you for that laugh. You know, I've been telling that joke for like the last 6 months, and this is the only audience that's laughed at it yet. So, thank you. You obviously have very good taste. Anyway, near the end of the movie, there's a debate held among the rebels. And that was actually a problem I had with this particular screenplay, is there was a bit too much debate and not quite enough action. So, as the Death Star looms directly overhead, a few of the rebels advocate actually picking up weapons to fight back. And they're generally shouted down by the pacifist rebels who argue that attacking those who run the Death Star is just another example of the Empire's harmful philosophy coming in by the back door. They say that the rebels who want to fight back are simply being co-opted by the need to control things. If we want to change Darth Vader, they say, we must first become that change ourselves. To change Darth Vader's heart, we must first change our own. We must above all else have compassion for Darth Vader. And remember that he, too, was once a child. And one writer put in the margins, excellent, that will be sure to moisten the cheeks of sensitive people everywhere. And he didn't mention whether those tears would be of frustration. Finally, Leia, Luke, Han, Chewbacca, and a couple of robots show up, and they tell the others they found a way to blow up the whole Death Star. And the rest of the rebels, including those who'd previously been in favor of surgical strikes aimed at removing Darth Vader, are horrified. They say, voices firm behind the sobs, you can't blow up the Death Star, what about the janitors? They say you, Leia, Luke, Han, and Chewbacca are heartless and cruel. And so in the exciting final scene of the environmentalist version, there's a scuffle breaks out between Leia, Luke, Han, Chewbacca, and the two robots on one side, and the pacifists on the other. And the pacifists chase them from the room and from the film, which is not a big deal since they were minor characters anyway. And so then what happens is the Death Star looms closer and closer, and audience members just chewing their fingernails, waiting to see whether the letters and petitions and lawsuits work their magic. And viewers see the lasers inside the Death Star warming up to destroy the planet. And then the lasers that glow this hellish red, and then you see the planet, and then you see the Death Star, and you see the planet, you see the Death Star, and you see the planet, and then you see this little spark of light, and that's, of course, the environmentalists getting away before the planet gets blown up. And then the planet, of course, gets blown up. And then the final shot of the movie, which reveals what a complete triumph this was for the rebels, is a still showing an article on the lower left of page 43 of the New Empire Times that devotes a full 3 sentences to the destruction of the planet. It's like, yeah, we got some press.